thank you for joining us early in the morning, and why don't you share with us a little bit more about the work that is being undertaken by ConceptionX and its importance in fostering the next generation of entrepreneurs and innovators. Over to you, Agata.
Thank you. Thanks to Priya for opening it up for us today. Great to hear you're a PhD yourself. That's the work we do here at ConceptionX. So what is ConceptionX? It is a venture builder helping PhD students commercialize their research. At the moment, we're based in the UK and supporting students across the UK. Though interestingly, many of them are actually international students and then going back home to foster innovation further abroad. So we work with the brightest people and helping them go from the lab to startup. Currently, we're working with 30 universities across the UK. And the students we get to connect on a daily basis are truly incredible innovators themselves. What's unique about our program, because there are many incubators and accelerators out there, is that students are joining the program during their PhD, so alongside their PhD, which makes the university the incubator. And they're still using university resources, they're still in their PhD, they're still doing their research, but what they're looking at is there an opportunity to commercialize what they're working on? And many of them are working on truly world-changing technologies. Most of it is AI, ML, blockchain, IoT. We get some hardware, so robotics, also genetics. So it's a very broad definition of what deep tech means. But what's really interesting about our work, and we have been in existence since 2018 when Riam Kamsa, our CEO, set up ConceptionX, is that every year we connect with more students, and every year more students join our program, which it just shows that universities are truly the incubators of innovation, and we really need to foster that. You get different attitudes at universities. So some of them are very supportive in terms of entrepreneurship and helping students on their journey, while others are a little bit more restricted in their thinking, and perhaps they want to keep students in academia. The reality is, and if I'm correct, that I think only 0.5% of PhD students actually end up working in academia when they finish their degree. But what I wanted to mention here is also the fact that because these are PhD students, their research, spreads over 3, 4, 5 years. It's in depth, and the potential is absolutely huge. So what do we help students with? We basically help them gain business skills and more commercial mindset to look at their work from a different point of view. They often, when they come to us, they're not fully, I think the appreciation for what it means to build a startup isn't necessarily there yet. They learn about finance. We have to change their mindset about finance. They learn about the customer, that the work that they're doing is really important, but there needs to be someone at the end who will use the technology they have built. And then also that they need a team. So we are sort of the middlemen, so to say, between the world of academia and the startups, and empowering students to create fantastic companies. To date, we have worked with 160 PhD students over 4 cohorts, and we're now about to launch our 5th cohort. These teams are, as I mentioned, very, very early stage, but they have already raised 15 million. And they're working on, just to give you a few examples, for one of the teams, I think from cohort 2 or 3, basically developed an algorithm that helps detect diseases such as dementia from MRI scans. We have a student on cohort 4, which just finished, who created socks, which basically help manage anxiety in people with dementia. So 2 health tech examples. Then we have another student who developed a hugging robot, which basically can give you a hug that's adapted to your height, your size, and your needs too. We have students who have developed a new type of wind turbine, which could potentially save millions and make wind energy available to many more destinations than where it exists now. So it's truly amazing in terms of what students we are working with are building, but it wouldn't happen without some help, because they're very early on their journey, and their understanding of what market needs, how to commercialize it, how can I make it a success, because it's great that they're developing something amazing, but at the end, you know, there needs to be a customer who will pay for it. The last thing I want to say here is that what is really, really important in our work is that we work very closely with universities. Without many people who are the innovation managers, the enterprise managers, or just heads of departments, our work wouldn't be possible. So the mindset of university staff is really, really important here, because without them, we just wouldn't get the access to PhDs, and PhDs also need support because they're working on their degree while building a startup. So I'll just leave everyone with that thought of university being the incubator, and I look forward to further discussions and hearing from the rest of panelists today. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Agata. Very important work, being the bridge builder to help the ideas, you know, come to life, and to help the students, you know, be able to get the necessary skills and mindsets to be able to succeed. Very interesting. Similarly, in your line of work, what more do you think needs to be done, you know, as we look beyond the pandemic? If you'd like to share your thoughts, please.
Yes, great, and thanks everyone for sharing their thoughts on what can be done in this area. I think I'll link it to some of the things that other panelists have mentioned. I think because of the space we work in, which is at a university level, I think it's very important we support the generation of new leaders, because what I think Yukako mentioned, you know, you need to be bold to go and start a company, to work on something innovative. But I think it's also important that you have compassion, and that's also something big. And why? Students we work with, because of the in-depth of the research, how complex it is, it has massive potential. I mean, it can tackle some of the biggest industry challenges, but world challenges too. So they're not just working, you know, to optimize another platform for a corporate. They're actually getting trained today to solve tomorrow's problems. And those problems are the ones that will only become apparent in 3-5 years. That's why the deep tech in particular, that's the space we're in. It's so important to look at now, because the potential is just absolutely huge, but it's not an easy place to be in, to work on a deep tech startup. You know, it's backed by research and IP. It has long impact, long-term impact. And as mentioned by Adam, you know, there is money in the world that can support it. But there is something else that needs to be done. And from my perspective of having worked with many students in this space, there's 2 things. And I think one of them has also been mentioned. First of all, it's making, you know, there's a lot of legislation, making it more accessible and understandable to people who are working in that space. You know, when we have a researcher come to us who says, you know, I'm building this algorithm that potentially it can change, I don't know, the agriculture industry. You know, there often are so green in terms of what are the regulations out there and legislations they need to look at, what to consider before they go and speak to an investor. But to make it more accessible, I think universities and governments have a big role to play. So universities, there is a lot of, they're basically a birthplace of innovation. Every student we work with is supported by a supervisor or two, works with other professors who, you know, have worked in research for 30, 40 years. It's just incredible, the talent that's there at universities. And these are the people we should be really supporting, because they are already trying to solve the climate change issues and many other issues that are already around the world and we're experiencing today, but our children are going to experience even more. So the governments, universities, how can they support students on their journey to help solve the big problems? But there is something else as well. It's actually the practicalities of starting a startup, because I think it's so easy to say, you know, there's a lot of information out there on the internet, and it's, you know, it's the information overload. Sometimes the more we have it, the less we know. And what we have seen with our program, it's actually the simple simple information, like, for example, how to interview potential customers, how to understand what their needs are before you start building what would you think might solve the problem. It's the basics of finance that are often not being taught, right? What is my what's my revenue? What's it going to be? As Adam mentioned, right? If you can show that you're going to have revenue, then you can attract money. But how do I get there? Like, how do I build a simple Excel spreadsheet? And what do I need to know as an individual to make sure that my projections are actually make sense? So what we do in our program, we work with a lot of experts in that area who provide one-on-one support to students. And I think it's sort of, I suppose, to solve the future problems. There is this twofold, not attitude, but I think we need to tackle it from two ends. There's the grassroots almost and the basics. And then there's also the higher level where we have the governments who can support it. And it's being that, as you mentioned, finding the bridge, something in between that can make it happen. So I think for us, just to summarize, to tackle the post-pandemic world challenges, we really need to support the talent that comes out of universities, on both the practical level, but also more on the legislation and regulation level.
Thank you very much, Agata. I'm always very happy to hear bridge building initiatives, being a bridge builder myself, you know. And I think with our speakers here today, there's a lot of synergy that's going on. Yeah, very interesting, very interesting.